Hello, Simone. I'm excited to be here with you today. Today, we are going to be talking about, despite the public perception to the contrary, where people are like, oh, well, women are the peaceful gender.
This will be the first instance of capital punishment in our society due to our awesomeness. So we are forced to improvise. We placed a boulder on that ledge.
You're gonna crush us with a boulder?
No! Stop interrupting. The boulder falls onto a lever that will launch knives. Fine. You were right the first time, okay? The boulder crushes you. Happy? No, just ignore them. Ignore them.
And therefore, societies that are peaceful would be more pro-women. And yet, historically speaking, we find the exact opposite trend. The more, and I will add a little note here, successfully violent.
Yeah, casting shade already.
The more gender egalitarian that culture is likely to be in a historic context.
You're a young lady now. You gotta start wearing dresses.
Paul, folks would call me a sissy.
And I had never realized this till today. I was listening to some people talk, and I just started thinking, I was like, you know, what they were talking about Spartans versus Athens. They were like, well, Spartans was actually generally gender more equal by a significant degree. And I started thinking, I'm like, wait, oh my gosh, every super violent culture I can think of from history was more gender equal than its neighbors. And people are going to be thinking, what about Islam? We'll get to that. Because you are not considering the context at which it rose, nor its neighboring cultural groups within that context. But let's start here with Viking culture, right? Norse Viking culture.
Love the Vikings. All about the Vikings.
You should be really proud of your wife, at least. I mean, Frøya dove into that pillaging 100%. Even took part in quite a lot of the
Graping.
Huh? Frøya forced all kinds of monks to let her write them and stuff. I didn't really expect that. I was totally blown away when I suddenly saw her on top of this monk, moaning and groaning.
Of course, I mean, that's what you do when you pillage.
Women were primarily responsible for managing the household and farm. This involved running the farm while men were away on raids or trading expeditions. They managed finances and household resources. Women's domestic authority was highly respected, as evidenced by archaeological findings like the Hasmari stone praising a woman's skill for running the farm. So the farm of the day would have been the business, right? Like,
yeah, it almost sounds like women were like, listen, just go off and play. Don't come back home until the sun is down. I will
make a ton of money.
I'll just handle everything, and then you go do you, and maybe you get some treasure or whatever.
The way you treat me, you're like, you do your little podcast. I'll just manage all our finances and businesses, and you can say you run it, sweetheart.
Is it not a traditional relationship? Sword and shield, Malcolm. Sword and shield.
Yeah, we talk about this as a traditional relationship model in which one partner does something that is safe and meant to bring in a reliable income, and the other partner makes big bets. They had the ability to own land and property. They had the right to initiate divorce proceedings. They had the freedom to run a business, and they had the opportunity to serve as clergy. Like, this is very gender egalitarian.
Oh gosh, I thought you said service clergy, as in, do them some favors.
No. Serve as clergy.
Okay.
They could not vote or speak at assemblies. I mean, these people weren't animals. They were prohibited from being chieftains or judges. They could offer witness in legal proceedings, and they were considered subject to their husbands after marriage. Generally speaking, this seems fairly sane as a societal structure.
Well, I mean, I think one of these situations is you have to actually look at how things worked functionally. So you may be subject to a partner technically, but if you handle the farm and the finances and the household, who really
you can get
runs
divorced
things?
at will.
I mean, like, it's a little clear, like that there's some balance here. I mean, you have to give the men something, because otherwise there's like apparently nothing.
Yeah. But I will say that they, by the way, great game if you want to experience this. I should probably promote more games, but Vikings, I want to say. The game's name is Viking Expeditions, and it's a good historical reenactment of what it would have been like to manage a Viking raiding group. It's actually one of my favorite games I've ever played, and I played it through like 3 times.
Wait, is this the one where you marry people off?
You can marry people at the end of the game. You can,
I feel like there's this one game that you were playing where you were like marrying off various generations and getting really strategic about it, and I can't remember what.
No, that wasn't Vikings. You're thinking of, oh gosh, what game is that? Crusader Kings.
That's it.
But Vikings is an isometric turn-based game, and they do a great job of depicting Viking culture, because I think a lot of people don't understand that these people who were going out and absolutely murder lesting the people of Britain, the people of France, the people of Germany, they did a very good job at spreading very quickly, like the Muslims did, which we'll get to in a second. But they were like almost like a invasive species where they could just own the local species, and the local species was dramatically less gender egalitarian than the Vikings.
Yeah, the way I look at it is the Vikings were sea peoples, but successful because they actually just called them the Vikings instead of sea peoples who never really got a name, you know, because they didn't do anything. The Vikings got shit done.
And you're descended from them, by the way. That's her cultural ancestry, one of the major ones. Sparta is another example. Sparta was dramatically more gender egalitarian than
Still
Athens.
on my list of girls' names. I know it's kind of gimmicky, but I think Sparta is such a
Oh, that's not bad, actually. I kind of like
name.
it.
It's a really pretty
In
name.
Athens, women were basically treated as slaves. Like, there's the famous speech where they're like, well, you know, a woman has lived a good life if you've never heard her talk.
Exactly. If you've never, they were in the way back of the house. You would, a good woman you'd never hear from. Famous names of virtuous women were women who would be raped and then kill themselves because obviously that was just so dishonorable for their husbands. It was, yeah, Athenian women, not treated well.
Yeah, really treated poorly. So in Sparta, girls received a formal education, including literacy, numeracy, and physical training. You would never have had that in Athens, by the way.
And Spartan young girls were in the same educational system, if memory serves, as boys until a certain age when the boys went,
They participated in athletic activities like running, wrestling, and javelin throwing. They had economic power. Spartan women could own and inherit property. They managed estates and finances while men were at war. They married at around 18 to 20 years old, which was much older compared to other Greek women who married at like 12 to 16. I mean, imagine in ancient times marrying at 18 to 20. Like, that's well after you can start producing babies, and that's because they were treated with respect. They had more freedom of movement and dress, often wearing shorter, less restrictive clothing. They were allowed to speak their minds and well known for their wit. However, limitations: they could not vote or hold political office, and their primary role was bearing and raising strong children for the state. But
so much so that they would sometimes choose a different male partner as, we'll say, the genetic material provider than their husband, with their husband's consent.
Yeah, this was common in Sparta. If they thought another man could provide better children for the family, they would do it.
That is taking a hit for the cause, people. I mean, wow.
Well, these women were tough as nails, and they were known for it. They were known for like talking back. They were known as so much better than Athenian women, even at raising kids, that the highest class families in Athens always had Spartan nannies.
Yeah, they were the OG Norland nannies.
Well, but not Norland. They were Norland nannies, and Norland nannies were also like muscle Amazonian women who were like witty and philosophers and not like just like strict.
By Norland nannies, I mean the class signaling nanny, like the epitome of the best possible nanny you could get. But obviously, Spartan nannies were way cooler. And if you or I were rich and trying to signal, we try to get a Spartan nanny, but they don't exist anymore.
Think that already with Spartan, we're seeing why the most martial cultures that were successful did this. It was because if you want to breed really successful male children in terms of a martial environment, you need their mothers to be in part chosen for the same things that you value in male children. If you take the type of woman who you can talk to the way Andrew Tate talks to the women that he is with, the way that he treats the women he is with, you are going to have weak children. And coming from, and we'll get to this, I come from one of the martial groups as well. This is something that was always made clear to me. If you marry a weak woman, you'll have weak kids. Don't marry the type of woman that you can speak down about and expect no reprisal. Okay, next, Iroquois Confederacy. A uniquely violent cultural group, despite what people think. The Iroquois, or the, oh gosh, I'm never going to be able to pronounce this, Haudenosaunee Confederacy, had a matrilineal society where clan mothers chose the male chiefs and could remove them from office. Women had a voice in the decision-making processes, including matters of war and
Wait,
peace.
hold on. Is this where Longhouse came from?
Yeah.
Ah!
Oh no, Longhouse is also Viking.
I know, but I'm just trying to figure out like where it came from in terms of matriarchies here. I guess this is just a thing, women like long houses.
Well, and I love it. So Longhouse, if you don't know, it's a term that was popularized by a Bronze Age pervert. I really respect the thinker, but he is just so wrong on like women taking control of society and that being a bad thing. The bad thing is as women from bureaucratic cultures and non-martial cultures took control of society. Not all women are bad. When a cultural group is intergenerationally, oh my gosh, she went hard on your arm there. People who are watching the podcast, that draw blood?
She is teething like crazy, and she's just two little toofs, but they're sharp. Gee whiz.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so women controlled agricultural lands and resources. They were responsible for farming and food distribution. Society was matrilineal, was descendant and property based through the mother's line. Women lived in longhouses with extended families. Women played important roles in religious ceremonies and spiritual practices. Some creation stories feature prominent female figures. And then limitations. While influential, women generally did not serve as warriors or hunters. Certain leadership roles, like chieftains, were typically held by men, though chosen by women.
Interesting. So the women chose men. That almost reminds me of that Dallas-based poly group that we randomly found. That was just this matriarchy where they would
really
select the men.
It was structured very different from other poly groups, where the women, there was a group of like attractive, available women who basically ran everything, and they would choose which men were at the top, but it was very clear that the women had the end choice.
Yeah. Reminds me of that. Interesting.
Okay, next culture. The Scythians. This is a nomadic warrior culture of the Eurasian steppes where some Scythian women participated in warfare, hunting alongside men. By the way, I forgot about that was the Vikings. Some women participated in Viking war. We don't know how many. It's been questioned, but there was definitely some. Archaeological evidence suggests about 20% of Scythian women were buried with weapons. So yeah, a lot participated. Women likely had equal status with men due to nomadic lifestyle. They could own property and had more freedom of movement than the neighboring cultural groups. And some historical accounts mention Scythian queens and female rulers. Women may have held positions of religious and spiritual importance, and they were involved in animal husbandry, crafts, possibly trade. They were skilled at horseback riding and the nomadic way of life. Now we're going to talk about a group that is a subgroup of the Scythians called the Sarmatians. So Sarmatian women were renowned for their participation in warfare or hunting, setting them apart from contemporary societies. Greek sources, including Hippocrates and Herodotus, reported that women took part in military activities. Archaeological evidence supports these claims with significant percentage of excavated military burials containing armed women. The female warrior graves often occupied central positions and contained rich burial goods indicating high status. Social status and roles. They participated in hunting and horseback riding along men. Women were involved in warfare and wore the same clothing as men. Some historical accounts mention queens and female rulers. According to Greek sources, girls had their right breast cauterized to prevent its development. Though this claim lacks archaeological evidence, by the way, the reason they would do this in historical context was for bow pulling.
Yeah. Well, what if you were a lefty?
Well, they made a mistake then. It's really not like I could see that definitely if having happened.
That totally makes sense.
Amazon comes from.
Yeah.
Herodotus claimed that women could not marry until they had killed a man in battle. I believe that though.
I mean, it would select for a tougher in general genetic stock. And actually, I was just going through some research this afternoon that indicated that it looks like there's more, I'm going to butcher this because I don't remember the exact terms, but there's more negative selection than there is this other version of selection where people select for multiple traits that are good. It's more just we weed out bad traits. It's more like the way that genes evolve is more oriented around people not being able to reproduce than it is around people selecting for various traits that work well in different situations.
I want it to be with something fancy. And that was,
We'll see.
but during late Samaritan period, artificial skull deformation became common practice for both sexes. Oh, that's boring. Economic contributors, they were likely to be involved in animal husbandry, craft, and possibly trade. Women were skilled at horseback riding, essential for the nomadic way of life, and their participation in hunting and warfare suggests they contributed substantially to the community's survival and success.
Okay.
Now, before I go to Muslims, I'll talk about Backwoods Americans, because that's my cultural group. In Albany and Seed, they're called Backwoods. So my cultural group is a merger of the Puritans and the Backwoods Americans.
Also sometimes referred to as the Scots-Irish, which is kind of a weird misnomer, but anyway, yes.
And if you read Albion Seed, this is Backwoods / Puritan cultural group. If you read the American Nation, this is the Greater Appalachian region. That's what the Black people became called, and the Puritans. Anyway, the Backwoods people, which is a predominant, I mean, Dallas is often called the capital of the Greater Appalachian cultural region. And my family has been there for 7 generations, and both sides of my family, is often seen as most martial of the American groups and the most violent of the American groups. You can see our other episodes on this topic. Just look up our American Nations episodes where we have like a map or something, or the ones on Greater Appalachian Cultural Group.
Yeah, and I wonder if this is the case, because you'd think that the sort of Southern, when you look at especially some tendencies of the Cavalier group that descended from second sons of nobility, essentially in the colonies.
This was a Southern group that ruled.
Yeah, you would expect them to be super violent, but I think part of it was that they really went for weak, docile women.
Yeah,
and that differentiation really led to a lot of docility on the part of both.
And this is how they became manner obsessed dandies.
Yeah,
From the perspective of my people, I'm like, I meet these Southern people. Like my married Mike was one of these, and it's actually really clear when I look at the people who the different people in my family married, what cultural group they came from, and he is quite a dandy.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, don't name names. Sorry, I just was like, I thought you were talking about
You would agree that he's a bit of a dandy.
I am Gilbert Fontaine de la Tour d'Autrive, the man of the house.
Dale Gribble.
And I should note here that despite being dandy, very cool guy who did a very good job raising his kids, which is really the only thing that functionally I judge a person on at the end of the day. He's obsessed with manners and good form and everything like that, because intergenerationally, when you're in one of these cultural groups who selects for meek women, as they did, you end up with men who are obsessed with, everything has to be nice, everything, I must stand up whenever a woman leaves the table. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but also, come on, you don't need to follow the manners all the time. That kind of signals you out as being a bit of a bitch, right? A bitch to the system, but a bitch nonetheless. And people can be like, no, manners are, and I do think manners are valuable, right? I'm not an anti-manners person, but when you become fastidious about it.
I think that the point is when manners cease to be functional, that's when you've lost the plot. But I'm all about manners. Do not step on my manners, Malcolm. There will be problems.
Oh, you love that I'm so bad at following all this
You're
stuff.
so freaking terrible at following manners.
But I try. And I think that's what...
You do not try. You do not even deign to try, but nice.
But the point being is that people often think of them, but they actually, and if you look at the original cultural groups of America, or any of the 11 tribes that are thought of as the American tribes, the Greater Appalachian region or the Backwoods people always had the most gender egalitarian treatment. Specifically, the women in these cultures did just a lot more of the work and were often working alongside men. Specifically, they did farming and tending to livestock. They did the production and selling of crafts. They did the preserving of food. They did midwifery and folk medicine. And they often founded and ran schools in the region. When I asked an AI about this, it said that they had less rigid gender hierarchies than the Puritan New England and more economic opportunities for women than the plantation culture of the Tidewater South. And we go into the modern iteration of this cultural group's view of the ideal women in the Tomboy Apocalypse video. But needless to say, the quote unquote, and a lot of people get this wrong, they think of it as a Southern stereotype, when it's really not a Southern stereotype of women. In the Deep South, women were seen as, well, much more diminutive. They had a very classic role, sort of a Barbie role almost. But in this cultural group, this is where you get the country song woman, I guess I would say. You know, the mud wrestling girl who goes noodling. We've had those videos. Or the, what is her name? Sandy Mae from Beverly Hills Hillbillies.
Whooped him fair and square, and I'll do it again.
You won't. You're getting too big to wrestle with boys.
I ain't as big as Jethro.
I don't mean big that way. I mean, growed up. You're a young lady now. You gotta start wearing dresses.
Paul, folks would call me a sissy.
By the time Granny come to help out, you was too wild to tame. By thunder, you could outrun, out-climb, out-fight, and out-shoot every boy in them hills.
Still can, Paul.
Yeah. You're pretty.
Oh, Paul.
I know you don't like it when I say that, but you like it when the young fellas around here commence saying it, and they will. Only they'll probably be using words, fancy words I won't even understand. But Ellie Mae, ain't nobody can ever tell you how pretty you really are, except me. You're the living picture of your mom.
She let me see her in a skirt once, about flatlined, and I bet everyone she knows is gonna doubt that line. Cause we know she ain't about the dresses, the diamonds, the VVS's. Ain't none of that shit impressive. It's oppressive at worst, deceptive at best. Makes her feel like a marionette. Got a lot of people trying to hop up on my new wave. Everybody celebrating Tomboy Tuesday. Tomboy Tuesday. Tomboy Tuesday. Everybody celebrating Tomboy Tuesday.
And it's like, why, when you have the, and I'm not going to go too deep into the eye gouging or the fights or the binding out
We've
people's
gone into
necks,
this so much. No,
the,
thank you.
No, it's ultra violence of a degree that I think
They were ultra violent,
really
but at the same time, yes, their women were definitely, they were out there slaughtering animals. They were out there in rough and tumble play. They were very self-reliant. They also had less restrictive dress. They were seen as quite scandalous with the skirts that they wore, which were very short at the time. So
like the Quakers are like, woo!
Yeah. Well, because they did wear, for the time, they wore the equivalent of, for the time they wore the equivalent of mini skirts, which was just horrifying for people.
Oh yeah. And then we're gonna get to the final thing, which many people think might disprove this, but it's actually sort of the thing that proves the rule, right? Which is, people will say, okay, but Muslims were a violent cultural group that experienced great success during a period, but they're so mean to women, right? They treat women so poorly.
That's just what I was thinking about, though, is the violence. At first, when Malcolm and I were having this conversation offline, I was like, but what about the Muslims? Because when I think about violent cultures, I think about Muslims. Then I realized, just as we were talking, all of the instances I've read about Muslim violence and heard about Muslim violence is explicitly and specifically violence against women, which is super, super different from violence culturally, because think about all the other forms of violence. So Backwoods violence was,
as a martial group today, are basically clown world. I'm sorry, if you look at the one of my favorite things in our Discord, we were talking about like Muslim stuff, and I like Muslims. I like some Muslims. I think that Muslim culture can be revived. I think there was a period when it was really great. But they were like, we should create an alliance between the Christians and the Muslims against the Jews. Like, they can't do anything against the X many million of us. And I was like, well, I mean, history would beg to differ. Just look at the Yom Kippur Wars, when they were attacked on all sides by groups that had more funding. Every one of the individual players had more funding, was attacking them by surprise, had better technology, and had a larger army, and it was like 5 at once, and they stomped them. And the question is why? Why did they suck so much when historically Islam was able to conquer a larger territory than the Romans ever did? One of the largest empires in human history. Why did modern Islam become so weak when compared to historic Islam? And I actually think a part of this is downstream from Andrew Tate's sort of nonsense, which is that they became anti-women. They became pro-weak women. And people are like, well, wasn't in Muhammad's periods, weren't they pro-weak women? Well, let's talk about that. If you contrast them with the neighboring cultural groups, there was a prohibition on female infanticide, a religious prohibition on this, which was really big for the region at the time. That's quite a big ask of people in a group like that. Perhaps the most significant achievement of early Islam regarding women's rights was the strict prohibition of female infanticide. The practice of killing baby girls was commonplace in the Middle East, North Africa, and India at the time, reflecting deep-seated misogyny in these societies that valued male laborers and valued girls less. But you also had property rights. Early Islam granted women control over their own property, especially their dowries and inheritance. While women's inheritance was set at half the rate of men's, this was still a significant improvement compared to many of the neighboring societies where women had no inheritance rights at all. Half inheritance for women was astronomical.
Oh, yeah. Whereas in so many other cultures, women were just literally the inheritance. They were property.
Yes. Islam enforced the concept of consent in marriage and prohibited marriage by kidnapping. Huge in the region at the time. Divorce, while difficult for women to obtain, was more accessible under early Islamic law than any other faith at the time. Now, limitations and changes. Women were still limited to one husband, while men could have up to 4 wives. Men were allowed to have sexual relations with enslaved women, so you couldn't have sex with them. Women's legal testimony was given less weight than men's. However, there was also an evolution and a negative evolution of gender roles. This is really interesting. Women were encouraged to pray at home rather than in public over time. Veiling and seclusion became standard practices, removing women from public life. This was not the case in early Islam. All of this veiled women stuff, that's modern stuff. That's not what Muhammad taught. All of this, never leave the house, never. No. Early Islamic women wore next to warriors. They were public facing. They were uncovered. They were, and you read about Muhammad's wives, they were in many ways equal to the Prophet.
Well, also, wasn't his first wife really his benefactor? I mean, she bankrolled him. His first
wife was an older woman who paid him. He kind of married a cougar. I'm just saying.
You're just saying.
The Muhammad of history was this guy who married a wealthy older woman that he was trying to he never said anything bad about this woman. No. If you're like, oh, he married a cougar, but she was his. This woman owned Muhammad. Muhammad was, oh, yes, please, ma'am. Oh, yes, whatever you want. Oh, that was Muhammad, okay? When Muhammad met this woman, when he married her, she was his employer. This was his boss, his Dami mommy, who he married. Not only that, but for the 25 years of their marriage, and they were married until she died, he didn't take any other wives. This multiple wives stuff, it didn't start until after Dami Mommy left the scene. Muhammad was not like, I'm a big, tough Andrew Tate guy. Maybe later in his wife, but not with his first wife. And I think that this is part of where the strength of early Islam came from. And then the segregation of women in prayer in public spaces became more common. Segregation of women in prayer is not Muhammad era Islam. These women being like a different class of citizen, everything like that. That is.
So wait, how are people justifying this then? Since it's so built, it seems into Sharia law.
They're just not looking at history. So you might think like, but then why do so many of these Islamic groups have women, covering their entire bodies and everything like that? Look, it's not in the Quran. The Quran says that women need to cover their ornaments, which it's pretty obvious what is meant by that. And that the wives of Muhammad need to wear veils, but nobody else. This is a corruption of the Quranic text, and I think that it has led to a weakness among the Islamic people. Well, I mean, a weakness plain to see when you compare the modern Muslim countries' economic conditions and military conditions with their ancestors. If you look at the Quran and you look at modern strict Muslim populations today, it appears to me that many of these populations are arrogantly, and I would go so far as to say sacrilegiously, attempting to imitate what was expected of Muhammad's wives and only his wives and daughters in all women. Specifically, these women covered themselves fully. They would only talk to men behind like veils, that sort of stuff. And that's where I think these ideas are coming from. But it was very clear. This was just a status that was for Muhammad's wives, and there was different statuses of dress expected of different women. So when, for example, a slave girl would dress too modestly by some of the Muhammad successors, she would be hit because they'd say, are you trying to dress like a free woman? This comes from Majmu al-Fatwa. And so I think that we can see that you are not supposed to, even within the early Islamic culture, attempt to mimic the propriety of your betters. And so it would be right as a reading to say that people who do this are being sacrilegious in trying to act as if their wives and daughters are Muhammad's wives and daughters. And to get an idea of just how masculinized women were in early Islamic society, you can consider characters like Nasayaba bint Kab, who is considered one of the most prominent female warriors in early Islamic history. At the Battle of Uhud in 625 CE, Nasabaya fought to defend Prophet Muhammad wielding a sword and a bow. The Prophet praised her bravery, saying, "Wherever I turned, to the left or to the right, I saw her fighting for me." And then you have Qual bint al-Azhar, who played a major role in the Muslim conquest of the Levant in the 7th century. Qual fought alongside her brother Dahira in many battles, including the Battle of Yarmouk against the Byzantine Empire in 636 CE. She is described as one of the greatest female soldiers in history. Look, Islam has neutered itself. It castrated itself through its treatment of its own women. Because the Jews, women serve a different role than men in society, but they were not treated in the same way that they are within the Islamic Empire. You know, you still want a powerful woman to be your wife. You still want an opinionated woman to be your wife. And this is like a classic thing with Jewish women, is the woman who talks back and is snarky and is actually technically the lead of the family. What about you? Your thoughts on all this?
I think that's a classic trope in many cultures, not just Jewish culture.
I think it's much more in Jewish culture than other cultures.
I don't know. It's like if you watch the My Big Fat Greek Wedding cultures, which are just parodies of Greek culture, that's a very big trope in all of the movies.
Okay, here I need to have the Stranger Than Candy lines that Greeks are just Jews but poor. I am so sad, but I was unable to find a clip of it. It's from season 2, episode 10, A Price Too High from Riches, and the line is, Greeks are just Jews without money. Yeah, I mean...
Hey, Romans just wanted to be Greeks for their entire existence, so just calm down.
Well, I mean, if you see this, like, Greeks are just Jews but poor, in another episode, I was saying that, like, no other culture gets to say that they were, like, the founding culture of civilization. Like, I can claim that my ancestors were conquered by civilization. And when I study the greats of history, I'm not studying my own ancestor. I'm studying the Romans who conquered my ancestors.
Yeah.
Greeks can claim this and Jews can claim this. Those are the only two cultural groups where they unfortunately can't say, well, yeah, but I was cultured and civilized by another civilization.
Sorry, the Chinese, hold on, get to have their own canon and everything. They were foundational, but they were isolated. So I guess it doesn't matter as much because
the Chinese were spanked by the West. What are you talking about? The Opium Wars, the Boxer Rebellion.
They're gonna get us back for.
You think they're getting us back with TikTok?
The TikTok revenge. The reverse Opium Wars have commenced.
The second Opium Wars right now. Are we gonna ban TikTok and then China's gonna invade?
No, we just need to. We need to regard. There was a great tweet about this where someone was like, we just need to regard periods of social media addiction as like, sorry, she's like hungry, as your time in the opium den. And that's it. Well,
people
any final thoughts?
More from you, and they want to see more of you talking. So say something interesting. Okay, I'll give mine first.
Sorry, I can't speak over her, so I have to mute myself.
So my general read of why this is the case is, one, you're just not going to have powerful martial cultures. And I think Simone mentioned this was the Deep South in the US and why that culture pussified so quickly into little dandies is they if you that's half your genes. Like when Andrew Tate chooses these weak women as his wives, and he's like, oh, I'm gonna have like 30 wives and I can
I wouldn't
outbreed
say they're
you.
weak, but I would say that they're subservient. He's screwing his own genetic inheritance over.
Yeah,
or I
he's
guess
building little subservient boys who are going to be like their moms half. And you do this intergenerationally if you are selecting for performative masculinity in men and subservience in women.
Well, and that's
over-
a key point. I think the other key point here is performative masculinity is preening. It is inherently feminine.
And he is very preening. He really is obsessed with this image and what people think of him. He doesn't, and I think that you're absolutely right about that. And intergenerationally, this breeds, at least from a martial perspective, weakness.
Yeah, I think that the key difference too is also just, is your culture pervasive in its masculinity or is it pervasive in its femininity? And when it comes to men pulling rank on women, what is that? That's bureaucracy, and that's feminine. That's the longhouse.
Yeah, you have to listen to me because you are X instead of you have to listen to me because you respect me.
Yeah, that's inherently feminine. I'm sorry. If you're going to pull rank instead of just show your dominance, then you are being feminine.
Absolutely. And I think that a lot of men today where they're like, oh, we got to get back to X, we got to get back to Y, even Bronze Age pervert to an extent, they are breeding this weakness into our culture. And people ask me, why do you not name your daughters feminine names? Right? I'm like, well, you can see this in the research. Women with feminine names, they go into STEM degrees less, they earn less money, they have less good mental health, but also femininity broadly, the way any society relates to femininity, I think it needs to be stamped out as a concept. It's just toxic. We need to get rid of femininity and build a role for women that is equivalent to this Viking role. Oh, do you have a little Octavian?
No. He came in with this thing on his head, and Indy's just like, my world is over. Octavian, come closer. Show us your hat. Show us your hat.
Go to mommy.
Oh, she's terrified. She's absolutely terrified. It's your brother. Look, it's your brother. It's your brother. It's your brother. Okay. It's fine.
I have a firefighter hat.
That's a firefighter hat?
Yeah. I'm
A
running.
firefighter or a firefighter
I'll just
hat?
put him on my lap.
I'm running.
Okay, go show daddy. Go show daddy.
See you later, alligator.
In a while, crocodile. Oh,
Whoopsie.
you're good. You're good, buddy. Oh my God. Indy saw him and was like, red alert. This is not
That reminds
okay.
me of the first time one of our kids saw me with my hair wet, and they were like, "Oh my God, he's a monster." Okay,
This is
Octavian,
not
we got to
okay.
ask you some questions about women.
Oh, okay.
Do you think having a strong wife or a weak wife is better?
A strong wife.
Do you think having a wife who can fight is better, or a wife who can't fight?
I feel fight.
Do you want a wife who can punch and kick and run?
Yeah.
Where are you going to find a wife like that? On a battlefield?
Yeah.
And tell me about your hat here.
It's a firefighter hat.
Can you tell people to like and subscribe?
Like and subscribe.
Yeah, but really mean it. Like, why do you want them to like and subscribe?
Because they're up.
Oh, Octavian, I love you so much.
Let me do the show I just did. Okay? I'm gonna do a video that I did at school yesterday.
Okay, show me the video.
3 little ducks came out to play over the hill and far away. Mother duck called, quack, quack, quack. Two little ducks came waddling back. 2 little
Show
ducks
them your
came
hands.
out to play over the hill and far away. Mother duck called, quack, quack, quack. 1 little duck came waddling back.
This is a horror story.
Wait, are these ducks dying?
Mother duck called, quack, quack, quack. No little ducks came waddling back.
Wait. Why did the duck stop coming? Did they die?
No.
Were they eaten?
No, let me show you when they close of the video. And when the mother duck caught, quack, quack, quack. 3 little ducks came waddling back.
Oh, so they were hiding.
Ah, you really had me scared there, buddy. Wow. That was a cliffhanger.
But okay, here's my question for you. Wouldn't little ducks be delicious?
Yeah.
Yummy, yummy, yummy. Do you think maybe they could be a nugget?
No, let me do the song one more time. And then we'll get to freeze.
No. I need to know about these ducks. Would you eat a baby duck if you could fry one up?
Yeah.
What would it turn into if you fried it up?
A hat.
No, it's a nugget.
He is still on LLM mode here.
Say like and subscribe. Say like and subscribe. That's the only way to get escape. Are you gonna say it?
I gotta subscribe.
You gotta scribe,
Didn't
folks.
save you.
I did go.
I love you,
There we
buddy.
go.
We love you, Octavian.
We gotta subscribe.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
I like that cliffhanger. I didn't know. I thought they had died.
I was deeply concerned. Yeah, that was a scary song. All right, would you mind getting the kids? I'll get dinner started.
No problem.
I'm
I
gonna
love
make.
you.
I have the.
No,
slow
you're
cooker.
not. We need to reheat my dinner from the last few days. So we're gonna make
Oh.
2 servings of it, of fried rice and this. But they gave me a lot this time, so we'll be able to stretch it over 2 nights.
Nice. Love it when they do that. Okay. Fried rice with your stir fry vegetables. Okay, I'm on it.
Two little ducks came waddling back. I got a block. That's it. I guess.
Oh, she does. Oh, she does. When she sees your face, she goes. "Ah." Oh, she's teething so much. Poor thing. But she's still so happy.
All right. I'm trying to think of like what we can do for like early clips. What would you do for early clips of this one? Women and violence.
I'm starting out by thinking of that Rick and Morty episode where there was this like women-led culture, but they were like hi, how are you feeling?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
But I'm trying to think about how to work that into violence. Like, I think that there's this unique bifurcation or spectrum between super women-centric society and super man-centric society, and then this happy medium. But apparently, it's a super violent happy medium.
Okay, I'll get
I don't
started
know.
here.
Ow! Oh my God! What are you doing to me? Your talons.
Are you a violent woman?
She's a very violent woman.
You had a little smile after doing that.
She's freaking biting me now. What is she doing?
She's gonna take you down, Simone.
She's gnawing on me.
All right, I'll get started before she eats your whole hand.
Ow! Girl. She's like pulling my hand closer. She's just gnawing it off.